Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Rising Stars. And on this leg of the show, we're going to be speaking with some successful entrepreneurs in the healthcare as well as pharma segment. Today, of course, we're focusing on Metropolis Labs, founder Ameera Shah and managing director and CEO at the company also joining us today. Now, under Ameera, Metropolis has evolved from a single pathology lab to a fully integrated MNC chain of about 125 diagnostic centers and 800 collection centers. Ameera, thank you so much. That's quite an achievement. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Abha.
So, what is new and exciting right now? I mean, from my earlier interactions with you, I know that you never sit still and you're constantly innovating. So, no amount of growth is really enough. So, what's the next radar there for Metropolis?
So, one of the things that I've been focusing a lot on has been to build out what I've built in India to build it now in Africa.
Right.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the last show we chatted on, but we've made significant progress there. We're now already in about 5 countries in Africa, in the continent. And I expect that by the end of the year, there'll be another 3 additional added to our kitty. So it's just really exciting going into a new geography with new challenges, new opportunities. Every country is different. It's like every state in India, but more complex because new tax laws, new cultures, everything. But it's going really well for us. And I think what we've managed to sort of build in a very ethical way, being even though an industry which is very competitive, very cutthroat, I'm very proud of. And we're trying to just continue that philosophy and keep building at a high growth, good profit, but a good quality business.
Okay, so give me a sense of the kind of growth outlook or targets that you have, because as you said, you have a huge, of course, a presence in the Indian market, and now you're focusing international as well. So are they both going to grow simultaneously? What's the kind of pace you're looking at for both markets? And to what extent do you see international growing or taking up a larger share of that pie?
So we've been actually in the international markets now for about 10 years. We started in Sri Lanka in 2005.
Right.
So we're actually the only Indian player which has become an MNC. What's interesting is that some of the international markets, and depends on obviously which markets you choose, but some of the emerging markets that we've chosen, we're seeing a faster growth now than we see in India. Having said that, profitability is slightly more challenged because one, we're a newer entrant. It's obviously it's a long gestation business, so we haven't seen it still peak. And there are other challenges, like in India, talent is not an issue at all, but we're seeing in Africa, talent is a huge issue. The work ethic, the culture is completely different. So I think we're seeing in India, the markets are consolidating a little bit more with e-com, which has come in even in the healthcare space. You're finding aggregators, you're finding, we anyway had a lot of fly-by-night operators in the industry because there's no regulation in our industry, right? So anybody can start a path lab, anybody can perform in any way they want, and that means that the competition is so intense because you've got such a fragmentation in the industry that the growth gets split in little microcosms across all the different players. So the few of us which are leaders in the industry, of course, enjoy a better growth, but it keeps getting split. And now with these new aggregators come on board, that's getting even more severe. There's pricing pressure, there's margin pressure because costs are escalating like crazy in India. So I think internationally, we're not seeing the same pressure in terms of pricing, in terms of discounting, in terms of cost escalation, and in terms of fragmentation. But these are markets which are less evolved than India, and therefore we're going to have to create the market versus actually just going and tapping it, which again means a longer gestation.
And a big challenge as well. Has the new government and their outlook on the sector, has that changed anything on ground for you yet?
So far, no. Health has unfortunately been an ignored orphan child for a long time of the governments, and that's UPA, BJP, every government. So far, we have not seen healthcare get the attention it deserves. And we're really hoping that, as time goes by, it is given the attention it deserves because in my mind, education and health are really the 2 most basic necessities of people in the country. So yeah, fingers crossed. We have not seen budgets allocated. We have not seen infrastructure status given. We have not seen duties exempted to make healthcare more affordable. We have not seen PPPs happening. Health continues to be a state subject. There's no regulation. Still dire straits.
Okay, so tell me something. You usually, I think, at Metropolis have a policy of reinvesting in the business constantly, for growth. At this point of time, would you also be looking at any other fundraising plans? You just had Warburg exit, of course, and that was a big development, and for what, of course, natural reasons. But going ahead, what would be the strategy on that front?
So currently we actually don't need capital.
Okay.
So it's a pretty cash accruing, self-sustaining, profitable business. We're not in a position where we need a large influx of capital to grow the business. We're growing pretty much through internal accruals. At some point, if there are investors in the company who want to exit, and we may do some sort of a liquidity event for providing an exit to existing investors. But at this point, we don't really need significant capital in the business. So don't expect that.
So you're not on the lookout for further investors right now, for instance?
No, not as a primary deal, no.
Okay.
No.
Any acquisitions on the radar? Because I know you've been talking about it.
Always. So eyes are always open.
And that big smile means that's what's, something you're looking forward to as well. So have you started looking at companies already?
We're always looking. And again, being such a fragmented industry, when 90%, 95% is fragmented, the labs that are actually available, or diagnostic centers available, are two varieties. You get centers which are radiology and pathology, which unfortunately don't always have very ethical practices, and we don't want to buy a business on a practice that we don't believe in or we cannot sustain. The pathology labs that are ethical and we're interested in pursuing them tend to be also quite small, and then you have multiple partners, and that becomes challenging framework to exist in. So, we're always on the lookout for acquisitions where people are like-minded, people are reasonable, they're looking to create value, and then we're great partners. I mean, we've been the lab chain which has done the maximum partnerships and the maximum sustainable and enjoyable partnerships which have been win-win. So our partners have really created a lot of value for themselves, and we've created for them. So hopefully we find some more.
Okay. Well, I know you've always been very on ground. So does this mean you're also traveling quite a bit? And what have been some of your own personal experiences from visits to these new markets?
So I'm less on the ground than I used to be. I've got a good, great team of people who manage most of the day-to-day stuff. I get involved in mostly leadership, strategic issues, new markets, new developments, new services, new partnerships, and obviously providing leadership and strategy for the business. But it's always interesting going to a new market. So when going down even to tier 2 cities or tier 2 towns in India reveals something different. I was just in Patna a couple of weeks ago, and it's always startling as to how your business model needs to be so customized and localized to a city. Our business does not function like a clothes Zara or a McDonald's or any of these guys where you can have a brand, you have a model, and you just roll it out. Because healthcare is so local, it's dependent on local relationships, it's dependent on local dynamics. So literally in a state, I would find the business model being different city to city, which means you really need to have a pulse on the ground, and the ability to macro manage this business and the ability to simultaneously micromanage is what brings success.
Right.
You can't do one or the other.
You can't do both, yeah. So it seems to be a fairly challenging sort of adventure that the business that you have been on and is continuing as well. Ameera, give us a sense of, the kind of, and I know you don't have to give us numbers as such, but some sense of scale in terms of the kind of outlook or targets you have, the kind of growth rate you've been seeing year on year, anything that you could share with us?
So, we've been in the past growing organically at about 25 to 30%.
Okay.
In a, down economy, and I still believe we're not in the best economic situation. We still are seeing growth limited on the ground. We see this come to 20-25%. And I think that's still great considering where the rest of the industries are. But what we're just trying to do is to really keep customers happy, number one. We're in an industry where when customers come to us, they're anxious. They're worried something's going on in their life or their family's life where they're concerned. And I always think our job at that time is to actually empathize, pacify, provide them a helping hand, and make the process easier for them rather than more complicated or more difficult or more worrisome. So that's always our first goal. Financially, I hope we continue growing organically at 20-25% revenue and bottom line. I hope we continue to accrue shareholder value and make sure we're building a quality business that accrues that kind of valuation. But honestly, beyond the financials, and I know we're on a financial channel, but beyond the financials, for me, the measure of my business is far more the connect that we have with our customers and the kind of impact that we make on their lives. Because we are in a life and death industry of healthcare. It cannot be judged purely on numbers.
Fair enough. You've also been very active in creating a platform for women entrepreneurs. I just want to ask you about further developments on that front and why you think it's important as well for women in particular to move forward in that regard.
So this is a personal passion. Growing my business for the past 14 years has been an unbelievable joyride, but also a very challenging journey. I come from a family of professionals and not business people. And what that means is that you pretty much then have to figure out each turn and each business challenge pretty much on your own without too much guidance and experience of having handled those issues in the past, which is a great learning. But I think as a woman, you face a whole different set of challenges as a woman entrepreneur. Because anyway, as any entrepreneur in India, you face a lot of challenges, but as a female entrepreneur, there is an additional set of challenges which most people don't even know about and don't even anticipate. There's no brand backing you, there is no money, there is no mentorship, there's no support, there's no network. As an entrepreneur, one of the most important things you need is network. As a female entrepreneur, you lack that network because your female friends are not running their own businesses and therefore can't help you. Your male friends, unfortunately, you lost many years ago to their wives. So it's a very challenging environment, and I think I would love to provide a platform that enables young women entrepreneurs who want to dream, who want to build some business of their own, provide a platform where they don't have to do without that mentorship, they don't have to do without that support. And I'll tell you, the most crucial ingredient in a successful female entrepreneur, surprisingly, is not money, is not mentorship, is not contacts, but is emotional support. Because as women, we're built sometimes not to have most confidence. And providing that to them, I think, can completely change their journey. So I'm launching a website and a platform that will provide this mentorship to women.
All right, well, do stay tuned and watch this space, and we'll get you more on some Ameera's plans on that regard, particularly if you're looking, of course, to venture into entrepreneurship. Ameera, thank you so much for joining us. We're completely out of time, I'm afraid. Great to have you with us on studio.
Thanks, Abha. Thanks for having me.
That's all we could pack into this edition. Thanks so much for watching. Do stay tuned. Lots more coming up.